Being John Malkovich, directed by Spike Jonze, starring John Cusack, Cameron Diaz, Catherine Keener, and surprise, surprise, John Malkovich. What's perhaps the most important piece of information about the film is that the script was written by Charlie Kaufman and for a very long time was floating around in Hollywood, considered to be at the same time brilliant and unfilmable. Which, if you've seen any other film based on a Kaufman script, like Adaptation or Synecdoche in New York or Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, you can kind of guess why. Kaufman is known for pushing beyond the boundaries of what a story can be. Where other creators occasionally break the fourth wall, he breaks all the other three. His stories expand beyond their worlds or fold in on themselves, or sometimes both. The characters occasionally leave the story or enter it from the outside. It's kind of difficult to explain on paper what exactly that is, but in a way that makes sense. But especially Adaptation and Synecdoche are terrific examples of what I mean and great movies in their own right. So, that's a recommendation to watch them. Being John Malkovich is equally adventurous and perhaps twice as insane as those. The story focuses on Craig Schwartz, a failing puppeteer living in New York with his wife Lottie. She pushes him to find a real job, and so he does. He gets hired filing papers at a boring-ass company that is located on floor 7.5 of an office building. And that's right, floor 7.5. You have to use the emergency brake on the elevator and then pry the doors open with a crowbar to even get in. And the floor has ceilings so low that you have to kind of walk bending forwards to fit in. So it's weird from the get-go. And then while working there, Craig meets and gets fascinated with a dashing woman named Maxine. Things go on and it seems like it's going to be, a quirky but rather regular comedy. But then Craig finds a hidden door behind the filing cabinet, which leads to a tunnel which takes him inside the mind, or rather inside the body, of John Malkovich, the actor who in this film plays himself. Craig basically watches from behind John's eyes, experiences whatever he does for about 15 minutes, after which he pops out next to the New Jersey Turnpike outside town. And this discovery leads to one thing and then to another, and without spoiling too much, the spiral of complete madness begins. So, in terms of what the film actually is, it's so difficult to say. On the one hand, it is a quirky comedy. On the other, like a typical Kaufman script, it is an exploration of what you can do with the story, how far you can go in storytelling, how far you can stretch it before you break that story, essentially. And that aspect of it makes it insanely fascinating to me as a creative myself. And thirdly, it is a somewhat philosophical exploration of oneself, of who we are, of what masks we put on every day, of how we behave and how we actually want to behave. There's that saying, if you want a man to show you his true face, give him a mask. And I think it applies here as well. Most of the characters involved in this story are not who they would claim to be. They have their secret desires and longings and resentments, and as the story goes on, they come to light. I also find it fascinating that the only main character that stays more or less the same throughout the film is Maxine, who, coincidentally enough, is probably the most unlikable or even despicable of them all. She's manipulative, she doesn't care about others, she exploits people around her, but at the same time, she makes no secret of it. From minute one, she is who she appears to be, and that also brings up the question, which is better, to put on that mask of a decent person and go through life wearing it and suppressing your urges, or is it better to actually be honest with yourself, even if that means you're a total absolute asshole? Best part is, I think this is but one of the many questions that you can ask yourself after watching the film. Or you can also just ask none, treat it as this wild manic experiment in storytelling, enjoy it while it lasts, have a few laughs, and then go about your day, and that's fine too. Being John Malkovich is not obvious. It's not easy to fully digest, I think, but it also doesn't require you to do so. I feel like, because it's kind of fine to interpret it in so many valid ways. You're not really bound to one of them. The one thing it is, without a doubt, is a brilliant, original, and adventurous piece of cinema.